Açıl.
What?
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 Mucho hablar. ¡Abandona Magnus Carlsen! ¡Abandona Magnus Carlsen! ¡No me lo creo!
¿Qué?
On the 19th of September, world chess champion Magnus Carlsen resigned a game against fellow grandmaster Hans Niemann after playing only a single move. The whole chess world was left in shock. For 3 weeks, Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann have been involved in one of the biggest scandals chess has ever seen. But curiously, the world champion has remained silent throughout. That is, until today, when Magnus finally broke the silence, and even though he didn't say much, he did drop a huge clue to what is going on behind the scenes.
I have to say I'm very impressed by Niemann's play, and I think his mentor Maxim Dlugy must be doing a great job.
If there was an award for backhanded compliments, Magnus Carlsen could add another trophy to his already impressive collection. He is clearly suggesting something here. But what? And who is this Maxim Dlugy? In 2013, a man named Borislav Ivanov was playing a tournament in Bulgaria. His opponent in the 8th round became suspicious of him due to his extremely strong play, his odd behavior at the chessboard, and his unusual way of walking. When he walks in a very funny gait, like he is afraid to step on a part of his shoe. It was noted by a lot of players in previous tournaments that he has this strange walk. His opponent alerted the organizers, who asked Ivanov to remove his shoes for inspection, which he categorically refused and left the tournament. At the same time, he also left the chess world, and the last we've heard from him is a 2017 arrest for forging driver's licenses. The man who alerted the organizers to Ivanov's suspicious behavior was Grandmaster Maxim Dlugy. He gave a very detailed account of his experience to ChessBase, explaining how he suspected Ivanov of hiding a miniature computer running chess analysis software inside his oversized shoes. That is interesting. Grandmaster Dlugy ended his account on a very curious note, explaining that he had become suspicious of Ivanov because Ivanov was not a strong enough chess player to convincingly play the part of somebody who knew how and why they made these extremely strong computer moves. Dlugy then said, quote, "If I had this gadget, I would be killing people left and right, and nobody would know. This is the real danger. Because if a 2600 player has this thing, he knows exactly how to behave, he knows exactly when to think, and he doesn't have to use it more than 4 times during a game. That's plenty to destroy anyone." In 2017, Maxim Dlugy was banned from the website chess.com, allegedly for cheating in their prize money event titled Tuesday. Privately, Max Dlugy is also an enterprising figure. He has worked on Wall Street and has also been the principal of the Russian Growth Fund, which is a hedge fund. In April of 2005, Maxim Dlugy was arrested in Russia on charges of embezzlement, but was acquitted and freed later that year. In 2017, then 17-year-old international master Hans Niemann begins a meteoric rise, shooting up through the chess ranks at a pace which both statisticians and super grandmasters have called unprecedented for someone in his age group. Earlier this year, Hans gave an interview on the excellent Perpetual Chess Podcast about his breakneck pace of chess progress. The interviewer was naturally curious about the secret behind Hans' success and asked about who he was working with to achieve his goals.
And are you able to say who you're working with?
No, I wouldn't. I don't really want to share that, but they're my training partners are all very, very strong players who I am very happy to be working with.
Fortunately, Ben Johnson of the Perpetual Chess Podcast knows his stuff and could later ask a follow-up question.
And then in New York, you got the opportunity to work with Grandmaster Max Dlugy some, right?
Yeah, that was actually, it was more in, it was started remotely in California, and then some in-person lessons in New York as well.
And I'm guessing a different teaching style than Walter Brown?
Yeah, definitely a different teaching style.
When asked about his thoughts on the future, Hans Niemann had this to say.
I personally just think it's absolutely impossible for me to fail at this point, because I'm really just doing everything that I need to do, and I'm investing every second of every day into improving my chess. So, it's, I just think that it's impossible for me to not reach what I'm achieving now with how I'm working.
In September of 2022, Hans Niemann was asked to replace Richard Rapport, who was unable to travel to the US due to COVID regulations, for the super tournament, the Sinquefield Cup. Hans happily accepted the invitation, since this would be his first chance to play classical chess against the very top grandmasters in the world. The field even included world champion Magnus Carlsen. Magnus had privately expressed doubts about Niemann's inclusion in the tournament, as testified by World Championship challenger Fabiano Caruana on the excellent C-Squared podcast.
We know that Magnus already had a problem. As soon as he heard that Hans was invited to the Sinquefield Cup, people think that this was because he lost a game to Hans. It predates that by a few days. He was already upset about Hans's inclusion in the Sinquefield Cup, and he already was considering leaving.
In round 3 of the Sinquefield Cup, Hans Niemann blows the world champion off the board. You can watch a detailed account of that story in my first video on the case, link in the description. After the game, Magnus Carlsen withdrew from the tournament, posted a tweet with a thinly veiled cheating allegation, and then removed himself completely from the public eye. We wouldn't see or hear from him for 2 weeks. On September 18th, he started playing in the Julius Baer Generational Cup. He declined all interviews, however, deciding to let the chess speak for itself. The tournament sported a star-studded field with many big names, but the one that stuck out and got all the attention was that of Hans Niemann. Many chess fans were intrigued by the decision to include Hans in the tournament, particularly since it is hosted by Play Magnus Group, Magnus Carlsen's own company. Luckily, tour director Arne Horvej could shed some light on that.
Why is Hans Niemann, after all of this commotion, invited to this tournament?
That's plain and easy due to the tour regulations. In the regulations, it says that if you are amongst the top 8 players from the last tournament, you are automatically qualified for the next and invited to the next tournament. And in Miami, we had 8 players in our major. Hans Niemann participated there. So he was automatically then sent an invite to this event. And that invite was sent well before the tournament in St. Louis started. So it means that we sent that invite to him, and after the commotion in the chess world, which of course we have been following closely, we saw that there has been no indication of Hans Niemann being involved in any sort of cheating in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour, so there was no reason for us whatsoever, based on allegations back and forth, to revoke his invitation. So that invitation stood, and he is participating in this tournament.
It is also worth noting that a number of the leading experts on cheat detection had analyzed Hans' games from both the Sinquefield Cup and his other tournaments since 2020 and not found anything to indicate foul play. In round 6 of the Julius Baer Generational Cup, Niemann was due to play Carlsen. Not much came of the game, as the world champion simply resigned after one move. It is clear that Magnus refuses to play Hans Niemann, but why did he do it like this? Why did he even show up for the game? Let's remember that Magnus has, at this point, maintained complete radio silence. The Julius Baer Generational Cup is played online using chess software and an automated tournament scheduler. If Magnus wanted to avoid showing up at the board against Hans Niemann, he would have had to inform the organizers of his decision. There would be questions and it could get complicated. To keep it simple, he instead just resigned the game, but he had to play a single move since the software doesn't allow you to resign before the game has actually started. Magnus cruised through the rest of the tournament, giving one of his best rapid chess performances of his life. In fact, he suffered only one loss during the course of the tournament, which was the one he inflicted upon himself in the game against Niemann. After the tournament, which is a preliminary to the second stage, Magnus finally broke the silence and gave a short interview. He talked briefly about his performance and the tournament in general, but refused to answer questions about the scandal. However, he did give that backhanded compliment. Let's watch it again.
I have to say I'm very impressed by Niemann's play, and I think his mentor Maxim Dlugy must be doing a great job.
Now, this case can really get us all riled up. Public opinion seems to swing back and forth more often than the evaluation bar in an 800 ELO game. I would like to point out that however interesting a character Maxim Dlugy is, and however flawed Hans Niemann may be, we have yet to see any evidence. No direct accusation has been made, and no substantial information has been given. We simply do not know exactly what is going on. Therefore, I will end this video with Bertrand Russell sharing some words I try to live by.
Either the thing is true or it isn't. If it is true, you should believe it, and if it isn't, you shouldn't. And if you can't find out whether it's true or whether it isn't, you should suspend judgment.